Good evening. I am finally back at Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. As usual, I'm your host this evening, and I have been missing for a few weeks. Some might say I needed a mental break. Some might say my daughter needed a mental break. She just wrote Common Entrance. And all in all, I had a chance to kind of clear my head and take a step back even from politics and everything that's going on for a while. And interestingly enough, become a spectator. So I realized Guyana had a very interesting month here, and I'm very, very excited to be back here with you guys in studio. And we have a lot to talk about. Who else to have a more interesting conversation with than my guest this evening, Mr. Timothy Jonas.
I'm sure your viewing public is very happy to have you back.
Yeah, well, I hope so too, but according to a lot of the comments on Facebook, they're never too happy to see me.
That's par for the course.
Well, as I like to say, exactly, par for the course. Our job, not being PNC, not being PPP, we automatically rule out 90% of the country being our friends.
I think if you strictly speak the truth, you make a lot of people nervous.
There you go. And I think, what's funny about that being said is I've been away. I've been out of, I haven't commented on politics in the last month. I really just took the time to, be there for my daughter. We did a little bit of traveling together. We had some fun. I got to see some family. And then I came back to Guyana in a month, in a couple of weeks, 4 weeks. And, Tim, it's been very, very interesting coming back here, and I've been back now for about 4 days, and getting the response I've been getting now that I'm back on social media, posting about politics, kind of, involved in everything that's kind of happening slowly but surely. And I've had so many people kind of, whether stopping me on the road, whether my regular, exercise that I do, grocery store, where I live, my place of work, that people that have really sat down and went, we're really happy that you're back. And it was very complimenting to me, but at the same time, very worrisome, like you said, because my comment is always, well, I don't make that big of an impact, if you will. I mean, I'm involved in politics as much as I can be, but I'm just one man. And they said, but nobody else is saying anything. Everything else is happening in this country, especially after the month we've just had. And he said, nobody's speaking. Everyone is just sitting silently, watching and observing what's happening, and nothing is being done. And I think that's how I'm going to start my program off here, because I know you were on with me for one of the episodes that I spoke about it, but this was the Madia Dorm fire tragedy. And the day I landed, the update on that situation made me sick to my stomach. And I'm going to ask our technical team to please pull up the news article. No, not that one. Sorry. It's that one's okay too, but the other one with the payout, the $5 million payout, is what the government is giving to the families of the victims. So here you have it in a hush agreement. Hush meaning the government has put a clause in that they're not allowed to sue the state once they sign this agreement and take this money. In a hush agreement that was drafted by the Attorney General, Mr. Anil Nandalal, and formed part of a cabinet decision, the government of Guyana is offering the families of the victims of the Madia school dorm fire a total of $5 million per child as settlement. And as it says there, 20 children have lost their lives. Tim, this, again, I'm going to be as frank as I can, and I try to be positive. I mean, I'm here in Guyana. I'm trying to do my best to make an impact, to make a change for the positive for the people of Guyana. And then I see something like that. And I have a daughter. I have an 11-year-old daughter who was just the age of those victims. And I think to myself, how can 5 million Guyana dollars, 24,000 US dollars, even come remotely close to compensating me? I can never be compensated, but even close to an attempted compensation for the loss of my child. And this could have been any of our children. This is not the first, the second, the third, or the fourth school to burn down. Any of those schools could have been packed with children at that time. All of our children could have been in those schools. So my question to you is, how is this even acceptable, and is it legal? I mean, I don't know what to say here. I don't know how to wrap my head around this as a father, as a Guyanese.
Well, Kian, I'll tell you, I'm not sure I agree with you in taking such a firm position on it. It's not an easy dilemma to solve, and it's not an easy issue to be resolved holistically. I hesitate to criticize any policy decision taken unless I feel that I can comfortably sit down and offer a better alternative. So at the end of the day, a tragedy has happened, and we've discussed the breakdown in the system which caused the tragedy. We've discussed the inefficiencies and the incompetence at the administrative level going all the way up to the ministerial level, where warnings were sounded, previous incidents, other schools had burned down, the most common sense safety precautions were ignored, children were locked in, there was no way to get them out, there were no firefighting or fire detection
Alarm,
devices.
sprinkler, or anything.
I mean, even the most basic items that in any job environment would have guaranteed that the manager is fired if it's not there. They were lacking. And to compound that, we discovered that a United Nations body had done a survey and had sounded the alarm and had made recommendations a year before. And to compound the problem again, we know that there were previous incidents with Christchurch burning down in St. George's and Sophia, the prison fire at Camp Street. So this is something that has happened. It's happened before. It's happened over and over and over. There have been warning sounds, and we have an abysmal failure in our leadership that allowed it to happen again, this time causing deaths. So that's the starting point. Now, the president did what I think he should have done, which is to say we need a commission of inquiry to look and to see what caused it and how to resolve it. So far, we are vague on what the terms of reference of that commission of inquiry will be. And I personally would like to see definitively in black and white what the ambit of the terms of reference will be. You see, I don't just want to know, oh, how did these girls die? We all know how they died. I want to know what system was there, who implemented the system, what alarms had been sounded, where the failures in the system took place, and who ignored or listened to the alarms, and where things went wrong. I want to know why lessons weren't learned from what went previously. So there's a lot I want to know in terms of a commission of inquiry into how did this go about and who is to blame. Because in any administrative structure, if the system fails, and you will forgive me, I will repeat over and over, everything must have a system. Every administrative structure must have a system. And if a catastrophe happens, it's because the system failed or there was no system. And if there was no system, it's the leader's fault. And if the system failed, it's the leader's fault because they need to be monitoring the system to make sure it's good enough to cover these eventualities, which are so foreseeable. Now, the problem has happened, the catastrophe has happened, it's landed, and what does the government do? There's no doubt that at the end of the day, the government is at fault for this catastrophe because either it didn't put in a good system or it didn't monitor its system or it didn't keep its system updated. So it's at fault. It therefore needs to remedy that fault by fixing the system, which hopefully is what the commission of inquiry will be, but also by compensating the victims. I hesitate to criticize the government for taking a step to compensate the victims, but I will qualify that in two ways. First of all, if you've ordered a commission of inquiry, certainly part of the mandate of that commission must be to decide who is at fault and what is an appropriate form of compensation for the victims. So I think that just in terms of sensitivity and in terms of showing a caring approach, and that you're not interfering or bartering or haggling in the market as to how low a sum you can pay. You needed to give that distance just to afford some dignity to the families of the victims and to show that you yourself, as the government, are being honest and fair and above board by allowing a third party, the commissioner, to decide was the best approach in terms of a remedy. The other thing that, and this is what bothered me, and to this extent I agree with you, admitting all the time that it's a difficult issue. it is unfeeling and calloused to say to these families, who are people from the riverine areas, from the interior, who it is doubtful that they've had access to legal counsel to take independent advice. It is unfair for the most powerful entity in the country, the government, to say to them, sign this and this is in full settlement of all claims and you can't come back. That shouldn't have been done. That was callous.
It's taking advantage of them.
I believe it was. And I believe that it easily could have been resolved in a dignified way and in a caring way by saying, here's the Commission of Inquiry, we're going to ask them. And if there are immediate needs, we are providing this sum of money.
Yeah.
Just gratis, just because we know that you are in a predicament. But we are going to ask the Commission, part of the terms of reference will be, tell us how to fix this. And part of fixing it is, what is proper compensation for the victims and the families of the victims. I think it could have been done better. But I hesitate just to say, oh, $5 million payment is heartless, because some form of compensation conceptually was necessary. And maybe the parties didn't think it through, but they did it.
But again, when I get back to my judgment of the matter, $5 million. When you say some compensation is better than none, that's like saying, well, the PPP corrupt, but not as corrupt as the PNC, so we are right. I don't find solace in understanding that $5 million is what the government has decided is the worth of an Amerindian child's life.
Well, again, there is a basis for quantifying these damages. This isn't the first time that somebody's been run over on the road and killed, or somebody through negligence has been killed by in a way that makes someone liable for their death. And the courts have a precedent of quantifying the compensation that should be awarded. And I don't want us to go down the road without any context of just judging the sum of $5 million and saying it's too low or too high. That is why I'm saying that it should have been part of the reference of the Commission of Inquiry, because they would be equipped and can equip themselves to see, well, what's the award that a court would make? Should that award be aggravated or exemplified because of the circumstances of these deaths, or should it just be that award as is? Should the award go to parents? Should it go in some fund? How should it be done? The terms of reference of a Commission of Inquiry could have included that. But I don't want sitting here and without giving a context of past judicial pronouncement in terms of quantification of money to say, well, that's ridiculously out of whack. I think it would be hasty to jump to that conclusion. Let me say again, Kian. I sympathize with the government that's on the back foot, knowing that their systems were not followed, or they carelessly and incompetently did not implement systems in the first place, knowing that there needs to be some kind of remedy, that somebody needs to feel that, okay, justice has now been done. How do they go about it? I think they went about it the wrong way, but possibly with the right intention that there has to be compensation, but not in the way they did it. It could have been done better. It could have been done more graciously. I
mean, at the end of the day, and again, what raises speculation, I think, for all Guyanese, and you said it here, is if there's a Commission of Inquiry set up, obviously part of that will be determining compensation, or at bare minimum, as you said again, the court has a system of determining compensation. So my question is, why would you have rushed before any of this has occurred to come up with $5 million and then again to tell the families that they're not allowed to take this matter to court again?
Well, here's the problem.
So what's the Commission of Inquiry for then?
Here's the problem. In Guyana, we know that systems don't work. And my concern is that by doing that, you ensure that there's no recourse to one of the few systems we have left that works, which is a judicial system which can quantify. I thought it was unfeeling and uncaring to make it a condition of these agreements that you can't go to court, you accept the thing and full settlement, that's the end of it. And I hope that this approach is not treated as bringing an end to the issue, so that there no longer needs to be an investigation to determine where the faults lay, where the blame lay, and where the breakdown was that caused the tragedy. I really hope that we go ahead with a comprehensive commission of inquiry to decide how these things can be addressed.
Can I ask you a question on a legal side of things? And I know it'll be your opinion because these things, are never set in stone on how the method is to go forward. But even with the $5 million and the contract stating that matter has ended and the families are not allowed to take the government to court for anything more for compensation. Let's say the commission of inquiry did end and it stated that the government was at fault. Do you think that it would be possible for any of those victims' families to still challenge that agreement? This comes after commission of inquiry.
Well, I don't want to pronounce on that without reading the agreement, without looking at it. I don't want to give casual advice, across the TV waves. So I'm going to avoid that if you don't mind.
Well, I guess what we can do here on our very little platform is plead with the government to please allow us to see the agreement that was signed between the victims' families and the government.
And to include in the commission of inquiry, into the terms of reference, a clause which enables the commission to look at the nature of the compensation that should be given and to make an award. That needs to be part of what they are doing. Regardless of whether $5 million has been paid or has not been paid already, the commission can take that payment into consideration in reaching its final conclusions. But it needs to be done with that kind of dignity at a distance, an arm's length transaction like that. Well,
what I'm going to do is, we can discuss systems and failures all night, but there's definitely two burning topics. One to do with lack of compensation to public workers, but I think what needs to be addressed here, because again, it's a situation I had only very briefly touched on before I left, that spiraled very wildly out of control on social media. It erupted in protests on the streets, but this was the Minister Nigel Darmalal being accused of rape of a minor. This situation, and I know this has been beaten into the public domain, but just to recap before I ask you, to give your 2 cents on it, was the minister was accused by a young Amerindian girl of rape and sexual grooming, and that sort of allegations written out in a letter that she claimed to have written. And then the government got a hold of it, the media got a hold of it, protests erupted. Fast forward, the president, the minister then handed in his resignation, according to the president, on his own free will. The president then accepted it, stating that he will not be part of parliament or the ministry, but will still continue to be a member of the PPP. Decisions through the system. And then from there now, we have recently heard that the police had gotten the file, sent the file back for more investigation. And then during that time of more investigation, the young girl then came out and stated again through the media that she wanted to retract her allegations. From there, the police, the DPP then obviously dropped all charges, and the police, everything was dropped. And now the young lady has come out with some, I'm not sure if you saw the video as of recent, in which she was claiming that all those things basically were false and never happened, and retracting everything that was stated. And to be honest, that's pretty much all the information that we have on the matter, that, as far as I can tell you, on a very facade basis. There's lots of holes and pushing and pulling of information and misinformation. But nonetheless, as it stands, the minister's, the former minister is no longer in office, but the young lady has recanted all allegations. So again, let me pass it off to you. You were here. I wasn't here for the last month. You were a little bit more on the ground than I was. What's your take on this matter?
Well, first of all, there is no winner here. And we heard the government say, let the system work. And we immediately knew the system was not going to work because our systems do not work. Now, no one will ever know what happened or what didn't happen. No one will ever know. And that's not going to change. But the sequence of events raises questions that I think need answers because it shows how defective our system is. If we look at the sequence of events, first of all, there are two possibilities. The first possibility is that the young lady never made the allegation in the first place, as she in her recent statement said. The second possibility is that she did make the allegation and then later on changed and said she never made the allegation. Those are the two possibilities, and we can only speculate on which one is true and which one is not. But in the sequence of events, I believe that there needs to be a serious inquiry and maybe another commission of inquiry because our systems are failing as to step by step what took place. If we go through step by step, the first thing that happened was the acknowledgement by folks in the government that they received a letter. Now,
and it was verified.
Now, that says a lot. The second thing that happens is that Dharamlal is arrested. Now, the police should not arrest anybody unless a complaint has been made against that person. I can say it again because this is in the Police Act. They should not arrest anybody unless a complaint has been made, so unless they have reasonable ground. And if Dharamlal was arrested in circumstances where there was no complaint made against him, then he should be aggrieved against the police. And there needs to be an inquiry as to why this man was arrested, why he was kept in the, well, apparently it wasn't the lockups, but in a police station, and why he was released on $1 million bail. Because those are not light, trivial events, not for a sitting minister. And I would be very surprised if a police force can casually say, oh, we did it because, without giving a good reason. So, if there was never a statement against him, then there needs to be an investigation as to why he was arrested. Before anything else happened, the commander of Region 2 took a statement that denied that anything had been done. So denied that there had ever been a rape. Statement signed by this child. Now, every Guyanese knows that when a crime is committed, you go into the police station, you report it, you give them a statement, you sign it. Some policeman laboriously writes down the statement that the crime is committed, and you sign it, and then they proceed in their investigations in our system that doesn't work. I personally have never heard of a situation where you go into a police station to report that no crime was committed. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But we have, not where you go and talk to a rank, or to the sergeant in charge, or to the officer in charge in a police station. You go all the way to the commander of the division to report, not to report a crime, to report that there was no crime. And you get him to write this thing down and sign it. I would be curious, and I would urge that there needs to be an inquiry as to what ordinary operating procedure exists to mandate that a commander takes such a statement and co-signs it, that no crime has ever been committed. Now, worse than that, if you walk into a station, you got to be damn lucky or damn important to reach up higher than the officer in charge.
There you go.
According to the Starbuck News report, the people who came in to talk to the commander came apropos of nothing. So, in what circumstances, and I would like to know what the standard operating procedures are, does the commander receive people? Is it on instructions? Or is it out of the kindness of his heart? Or is he open from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 4 o'clock in the afternoon to receive people off the street to take statements that no crime was committed? I would like to know.
Bypassing everyone below him.
Now, there may be a standard operating procedure that permits this and it's entirely justified. I simply don't know. But I think it raises enough of a question that needs an answer. And again, if the police arrested Dharamlal with for no reason at all, that needs an inquiry and he needs an apology. If there is a standard operating procedure for taking a statement by the commander of an entire region that no crime has been committed, then we need to understand how that is done so that other people can do it. Mm. The number of incidents that have taken place and the number of allegations that were made need an inquiry to understand how the system failed. Because either the system failed by implicating a man who is completely innocent and against whom no accusation was ever made, in which case the system completely failed and that man should be completely aggrieved and needs a remedy. Or the child did make the statement, this is the second possibility, and then recanted the statement, in which case the system needs to be explored to see why this transpired. There are more questions asked than that, and Guyanese are not sitting down being deceived. The fact is that those that want to believe will always believe, and those that want the truth, who unfortunately so far in Guyana are in the minority, will keep asking until they get the truth. And then those that do not want to believe, who fall on the other side of the fence, don't care one way or another. They are happy that there was a problem that embarrassed the government side. Right. So 90% of the country don't care. 45% of them are happy the government's embarrassed. The other 45 are on the side of the government and want their people exonerated and want it to go away. And the small minority who want the truth are looking at this thing aghast, saying, the system is failing us.
It's been 1 month of this, and as I said, I sat by as a spectator and watched this entire matter transpire, all the back and forths, getting the messages from people that I do within the systems and so on, and honestly, at the end of the day, not knowing what to believe. And I sat down there myself, again, as independent as I could have. Again, not somebody lending a voice to the situation, not somebody fighting for a cause, was not involved in the least. And I still worry about my child in this country now. Because my fear, Tim, and I'm speaking to you again as somebody on the outside of this matter that was not involved, if something like this happens, the way that this whole matter took place made me feel like if somebody does something to my child or my daughter that is part of the government or has lots of money, what then happens from there?
But Kian, it's in every aspect of our society. You open the papers every day and you read that somebody's been knocked down on the road and the family are protesting and say they want justice. And they have this vague notion of justice, but there's very definite sense they're not going to get it because the system is broken. So someone is knocked down, someone's arrested and dies in prison. We read about these things in the papers all the time, and there is never any confidence that there will be an investigation, an inquiry, detective work, and that the guilty party will be duly punished at the end of the day. There is no confidence in that. Our systems are broken. And the reason our systems are broken is years of political neglect and poor and incompetent leadership that has seen a gradual deterioration of everything until we're left where we are.
Tim, again, I have to, I sound like I'm preaching to the choir here, but again, I'm sitting here as an outsider for the last month, watching every news article on Newsroom, every news article out of every government puppets, and I'm going to say that very frankly, government puppets mouth speaking about which road billing and which bridge billing and how much money the debt ceiling now gonna buy and who shaking hands with which leader in which foreign country for no reason at all. And now I sit in here and I'm watching and have seen over the past month a complete breakdown in any human kind of respect or safety measures. It's worrying as a citizen, and it bothers me to sit here and listen and watch respectable people in this society. And I'm speaking to all of you out there, all the ones that get in contracts, all the ones that saying, "Oh, don't worry, money flowing," but yet can sit here and watch children die, can sit here and watch rape allegations have this type of utter chaos, and still sit there and say, "Oh, it's not my problem yet, it's not me child, but I'm making money and I all right." Like, it disgusts me that more people have not taken this veil off of their eyes. Stop with the bullshit now and accept that this country is failing us as people. It has to stop. I have not been speaking on politics for a month now, and I sat down there sick to myself. I traveled. I'll tell you, I traveled to Japan where I met Guyanese. I traveled to Canada where I met Guyanese. I was in New York where I met Guyanese. I was in Miami where I met Guyanese. And let me tell you, this whole game and everybody pretending, "Oh, the government is so great." Well, let me tell you, it was between those that are like, "Listen, I don't know what's going on in Guyana, but it always seemed like y'all got some drama down there, crime this or blah, blah, blah." And they got the ones that have just kind of said it as they seen it. Or then there's the ones that, "Oh man, look at all the progress going on in Guyana. You know, y'all building and the government doing such a great job." Well, here what I do it. I am challenging any one of you out there, and any one of you living in New York, Miami, Toronto, Canada, England, anywhere, wherever you are, you think the government is doing so good, you think things are so great again, please come back. I'm begging you to come back. Let me tell you, I'm using this as my segue into my next point. I'm going to ask our technical team, I have the nurses. There's an article that came out in the news, something I've been talking about now for a year and a half. This situation that has now reached a breaking point. And I know you can talk about the Judicial Service Commission as a whole next time. This is the next headline that was on July 13th, 2023, which is just a couple of days ago, 3 weeks ago, while I was away. Guyana turns to Cuba for help as local nurses bolt to UK and other countries, right? Kaichur News noting that there is a shortage of nurses in the local health system. President Irfanali on Wednesday said that he's going to be turning and engaging Cuba to have nurses from there come down to Guyana and help. So there's your article. Okay? Ask anybody in the local health system who are very scared to talk, obviously, because they're working for the government. And again, they don't want to be victimized and are trying to be as professional as possible, but will tell you the collapsing of our health system in the country. Something I've been speaking about. Anyone that's been following me, I spoke about it on the Freddie show. I spoke about it on this show. I spoke about it a year ago, over and over. And now we're watching this and we're speaking as though everyone here is, "Oh, things are so glorious because we building road and bridges and shaking hands with foreigners." But at the same time, we're watching all of our nurses bolt. And we're going to go back to our systems. And I'd like you to please tell me, Tim, how is it that, you know what, let's try and be a little bit more positive, because you know I'm the emotional one here when it comes to Guyana and my passion for it becoming better. You're the more rational one that will come with the solution base. Tell me what the system is to fix, at least at bare minimum, this nurses situation. Why is it that they're leaving and what needs to be done? I want you to put yourself in the government's position with the resources that they have and fix that problem.
Well, it's something I preach about, and there are three categories I talk about. Nurses, teachers, police. But I would actually go further and add the public service. Something's happening in Guyana. The private sector is increasing. So there are more and more people employed in the private sector. And I really believe that the public sector should be, including nurses, teachers, and police, should be at the front of the pay scale. So if you are a nurse, a teacher, or a policeman, you should be getting more money, generally speaking, than people your equivalent in the private sector. We need people who are coming out of school, who are coming out of university, to be competing first of all for the jobs in the public service and for the nurses, teachers, and police positions. If we can achieve that, then we will be ensuring that the most competent people are going in those areas. And that is the first step to ensure that we get a good service in those areas. Anybody that goes into any department, any public department, from the post office to the NIS to the passport office, anywhere you go in, you go girding your loins knowing that you are about to be tortured for several hours before you get through with whatever small transactions is you're going to get through.
Make a pass a piece.
Because the system isn't working.
Correct.
The first step to get the system working, you got to improve people's salaries.
Yeah.
Now, we got lots of money. We got free money coming in from oil and gas. And the amount of billions I see being spent on contracts which are bypassing the procurement rules, which are going to a small minority of people who are making huge amounts of money. Some of that money can go where I agree there are no kickbacks. Start paying our professionals and motivate them and incentivize them by the fact that you're paying. Let me tell you, this isn't a new problem. Teachers and nurses have been running away from this country since the 1980s.
Your parents were teachers.
Before.
Yeah, you know this.
So I remember I used to go for lessons to Mrs. Griffith. And Mrs. Griffith migrated and went to the Bahamas. They go to the islands. They go to England. They do the same job where they go. But in doing that same job, they can pay their mortgage for a house, they can drive a car, they can send their children through school, and they can have the dignity that each one of us wants to have in this life. They don't get that dignity here, working for less than $100,000 a month and trying to make ends meet in an environment where you are increasingly seeing the vulgarly rich around you getting richer and richer, and knowing that you can never break into that because you're not family and friends.
Right.
The first step is to pay these people. The reality is that you can't motivate anybody any other way. And if you don't pay them, your best and brightest will migrate. The next ones will be in the private sector, and you will be scraping the bottom of the barrel, finding people who can barely put together 1 or 2 CXC results to persuade them to get into your police force and to do nursing and to do teaching. And we have unqualified people in all 3 of those areas, and unqualified people in our public service. You got to pay them.
Yeah.
Now, the decision to pay does not have a kickback. However, it is the only way to start this process rolling. And the fact is, we can now afford to do it. So let's do it.
Okay. I'm actually going to add a little bit to you to what you said, because I 100% agree. The salary right off the bat has to be risen. And when I mean risen, Tim, I mean doubled minimum. Okay, we're talking about teachers and police that starting off at $70,000 to $80,000 a month. I mean, that can't even...
And you know, Kian, what bothers me? The last time I made this point, some observer typed in a comment that I have to take this thing in context and that nurses and teachers in Canada pay higher rent. And I'm thinking to myself, is this someone who is so divorced from the truth and from reality and doesn't really want to make any effort whatsoever to speak the truth, that he's going to ignore the big question that must appear in front of his head? Why then is the teacher migrating from Guyana to go to Canada in order to pay this increased rent? And people make these ridiculous, banal responses that don't withstand even the most superficial scrutiny and try to sidetrack you from what is obviously a true position.
Yeah.
It's a bit frustrating.
No, but let me just tell you how...
90% don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah, and let me show you even more so how that's not true. My sister lives in Edmonton, Alberta, okay? In which one of our cousins there is a teacher, okay? Teacher in grade 6, I think. Starting salary in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada is $80,000 a year.
I can give you another example.
Hold on. Sorry, just a touch. All benefits included for her family, her children, and allowances, entire summers off with pay. I don't know how much more you want my list to go on.
I'm aware. A neighbor that I grew up with, her son wants to be a policeman. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not aware of any Guyanese who will proudly say my son wants to go into the police force. But it just so happens that this neighbor has migrated to Canada, so he wants to be in the police force in Canada. And to qualify to get into the police force, you need a degree. Mm-hmm. So he has to do his 4 years training in university before he can even go into the police academy. Can you imagine the quality of policemen? Imagine they are producing to do real policing work rather than stopping you on a Friday evening when you're driving home from work as I see them doing on the embankment
every night.
It's really time
that was
recognize our systems are
correct.
broken and what's needed to be done to fix
That was the second part of what I was going to say. The training. These people, so much resources are put in to every aspect of their training. Whether it be teacher, doctor, nurse, policeman, anything, fireman, and everyone over there can tell you the same thing. Whether it be whether the States or Canada, wherever, or England, they will tell you that it's a respected job because those guys are professionals. Those guys have gone through, much like anyone will go and do a degree in school, they have done more than 4 years of training easily to do the job that they're doing. It is not something that's taken lightly, and they are respected for it. The public gives them respect for it. They go out into society and does something positive, at least on the most part. Don't get me wrong. There's always flaws and issues, but again, I don't even like using America as an example. But
so let us go back to the competence question and the training question. Mm-hmm. As part of the lineup with the Dharamlal saga, the police spent a great deal of time putting together a file, doing their investigation, putting together a file, putting together information, all their reports, the people they interviewed and all of that, to send to the DPP's office to progress the issue. Mm-hmm. The DPP sent it back.
Yeah.
Now, there are two possibilities. Either there was some corrupt interaction, or there was an incompetent effort made to put together a file of evidence to show to the DPP sufficient for her purposes. Clearly, the fact that the police sent the file to the DPP demonstrates that they thought it was enough.
Yeah.
So at this level as well, there is such an obvious lack of competence that our systems are broken and we need to get it right. And the only way to get it right is to have a level of qualification. In the police force, I genuinely believe that there needs to be a symbiotic relationship with the University of Guyana. Mm-hmm. And that the police need to be incentivized. So you double their salary if they get a degree. But there need to be a tailored, bespoke degree offered at the University of Guyana, which includes literature, history, law, maths.
Yeah.
That when you get that degree, it is designed to make you a more effective, a more competent policeman, so that you understand the system, you understand the common sense, you understand how to present evidence in court, what evidence you need in order to present a case or in order to conduct an investigation.
Yeah. Psychology as well.
Unless we have that, yes. And I think that can be done, and that is the second suggestion I'd like to make. So we have a nurses' school, and we do train nurses here, and I understand it's a good school.
Absolutely,
so
the world takes them. As you can tell, the world is accepting them.
We're not paying them.
Then they're not paying them.
We're not training our police, and we need to be training our police because we're seeing the problem in terms of competence. And the University again is right there. And it needs to have the kind of relationship with those different institutions that it is training police, sending them back out more qualified and more competent to do the job they should be doing.
Absolutely. I do want to make a comment here, and this is for everyone out there, to the public, to understand that we're making these suggestions, one, through exposure of our own and what is on a very facade basis in the context of these are things that are just not being done, which are fundamental to ensuring that there's progression of our human resource pool. But what's more interesting about this is people will sit there and say, well, we need to discuss more, who's stealing, who corrupt, what about this oil contract, what about this? And here's my problem with what people don't understand. Unless our health, education, and security are as fundamental aspects of society are strong, are independent, are encouraging growth throughout our generations as children, for our future generations, then the fact of the matter is talking about all this other stuff will go nowhere and do nothing. All right? If you making all the money in this country, and I like to use this example all the time, you could make as much money as you want in this country. You want to know what a joke is to all the rich people? Just so, if you are not considered one of the rich ones, you want to know what a joke is for all of them? None of them don't spend their money here. They just take it and go to Miami. They just take it and go to New York. They just take it and go anywhere else except here. You want to know why? Because it's not safe to spend their money here. All right? And this is something that we need to start wrapping our heads around. All right? Don't worry about who is making more money than the next one. This is a free market society. These are things that are going to happen anywhere you go in the world. But here's one thing that I also would like to touch on now that we're talking about systems and training and schools and where the government is failing and systems that are failing. And this is APNU and PPP. My daughter just wrote Common Entrance. Okay? It disgusts me to my stomach. She got 96.6% on her overall. On her, I think it's 517 marks. She got 17 wrong or something like that. Okay? 17 marks deducted. 96.6% got St. Joseph's and feels like she failed because she's going to Joseph's. Now, again, let's talk about that for a second. The fact that there are still hierarchy schools that are given more resources, that are shown some sort of favoritism, or even worse yet, there are schools that are just completely neglected. And answer me why all of these schools in this country are not at the same level already. All the resources are not equally allocated and are not managed properly together. How is it that children need to worry about going to anything below St. Joseph's and need to say, oh my God, you're not going to get any kind of education there. Oh my God, you should feel like a failure. And then again, I don't even want to start with the whole Common Entrance ridiculousness and how the exam is so flawed. But nonetheless, I just want to know why we have had successive governments not do anything to help, claim that they're doing all of these things, education, gold scholarships and this and that. Look how much we're doing. We're so wonderful. Yet, just to let you know as well, another little statistic for you. Over half of the children that wrote Common Entrance this year failed in math. Just as a basic. Okay? Now, these are just little statistics I want to show. Now, you tell me how, and then they can sit down there and talk about the top 10 students and how amazing they did. Look at all of them tie in, and they're so amazing. Look at all the schools that they came from, but not speak about literally the other 70% of the country. How is it that we're accepting this as a system that's failing? And we're sitting here speaking about progress. Don't worry, they need to build road. Don't worry, we need to see buildings. I don't understand. What is a school with no teachers? Oh, brand new school, check it out. And nobody inside teaching?
I think you identified the three that are important. Your security, your education, your health. And certainly all have fallen down. Now, I'm sorry about the example you gave, because I think that's one of the biggest tragedies in our country. We put our 10 and 11-year-olds through such enormous pressure that adults shouldn't have to go through.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your daughter. A very good friend of mine, his child got into Roses and was crying nonstop, just crying. Now, Roses is
97, 98% overall. Yes.
So what you've done is you've guaranteed that 95% of your children feel like failures. Mm-hmm. And you have, as a system, implemented an arrangement where every single year, without fail, you condemn over 90% of the children of Guyana who write Common Entrance to a feeling of failure and abject depression. In a system where, even with the best teaching available, they all can't get into QC and bishops, but they don't have the best teaching available. And they are helpless because they are the most vulnerable at that age. They don't have a choice what school they're going to, if their parents can afford lessons, if their parents can afford to send them to private school. They don't have a choice. They're just along for the ride at that stage. Yeah. And yet they are condemned and they are judging themselves harshly. And we are doing this to our children.
Parading around 10 of them. Yeah. Saying, look, you can't be like them, even worse.
You know, when I think of the hardships that we Guyanese go through and that we pass on to the next generation, it really doesn't surprise me how unfeeling you see people are on the road in terms of observing hardships and their reactions and their lack of sensitivity and their lack of empathy,
right,
and genuine concern, because we learned that from 10 years old.
Yep. I completely agree. It's an oppression. It's an abuse.
So it's
a mental abuse.
We think that 90% of our children when they reach 10 and 11 and they write common entrance, and we know 90% of them are going to fail in their own eyes because of the system that we have put them in, that we know guarantees that level of failure, and that we know the schools that they will then go to will guarantee continued failure, so that illiteracy rates are up.
Yep.
If you can afford to send your child to lessons, you send your child to lessons because you know they're not being taught in school. It's a disaster.
Just
and
so
an ongoing disaster.
Just to show you the statistics as well. And these are numbers that I follow very closely. Over 30% of the children that write common entrance that go forward do not write CXC. Over 30% of them drop out.
Now, again, we have to be about solutions.
Yeah.
And I'd said on this show, and I've said in other fora, that first of all, of course, you got to pay your teachers more. And your teachers need to have the kind of income that they can pay for their mortgage, they can carry their family on a holiday every year, and they can drive a car. They need that income. If they don't have it, then you will not get qualified teachers.
Correct.
We also need to make it a term of their contracts that they may not teach outside of the school that they've been hired to teach in.
Very good.
You see, there are a lot of teachers who only stay in the school and take the pittance that they are paid because they know that keeps them up to date in terms of the syllabus and access to books and access to students that they can then encourage to go and take lessons with them. And that's where they make their real money. And we got a lot of very wealthy teachers who are giving lessons. And I don't blame them for it, but it should not be at the expense of the students and in a situation where those same teachers are therefore encouraged to only teach half the syllabus in school,
neglect the system,
so as to encourage those same students to come and learn the other half in lessons. It's unfair to parents, it's unfair to students, and it's unfair to the teachers who are staying in school. And the sad thing is, it's the best teachers who can afford to do that because everybody knows who the best teachers are.
That's right.
So I would make it, first of all, every teacher should be making as close to $1,000 as starting out as possible.
With benefits.
And the term of the contract must be that they may not teach outside of school. That their teaching is there, it's exclusively there, and they may not make an income anywhere else teaching. And
absolutely.
I think that would solve the problem, and certainly it would create more accountability in the school. It would encourage them to devote their attention in the school. And then again, they need to be incentivized to go to university and to get a degree. And I think that the salary scale needs to reflect that a teacher with a degree earns much, much more than a teacher without a degree. And again, the degree can be tailored. You can get a bespoke degree that is geared to a teacher, to help a teacher in the subject that he's teaching. So there are solutions available with the infrastructure, as bad as it is, with the infrastructure we have. We just need to put it in place.
You know, I'm really truly hoping that everyone here watching understands that, you know, we get a lot of flack for, oh, you're just always against the government, you're always, you know, negative about what's going on. But I'm sorry, I'm at least trying to be as honest as possible as somebody living and working and raising a child here, and understanding that when we speak about all the ills that are happening in the country, we have to start looking at root causes and, more importantly, solutions. And I will, you know, kind of round off the show by explaining to everyone that if we keep doing the same thing, we can't expect a different result. Now, we have had the same two parties run this country for equal time since our independence. Both of them have had 25 plus years. Both of them have had an equal opportunity to run this country. And I'm going to go, I don't care. I do not care about your argument as to which one has done a better job. Because what we all can agree on, everyone from the top down, is that this country is still in piss poor condition. Okay? And you want to speak about all the roads being built and infrastructure and oil and this and that. And I'm sorry. I sat down today with a young lady, an engineer, working in the oil industry that only is looking for how do I get out of this country. And that's in the oil industry. Earning what? Maybe $2,000 a month, right? 400,000 plus a month, and still is sitting here now, even more so with the cost of living, saying, you know, has family and friends obviously outside and abroad, working half as hard as she is, living like kings and queens in comparison. In a safe society, has money put aside, takes vacations twice a year, has a 2023 car, is to put down a mortgage to buy a house, all on their own single salary. And these people are just becoming so destitute. And I don't know, I honestly don't even know how to respond. You know what she was doing? She asked me today, she's like, do you have any houses that apartments available that might be like 8,000? Because if I got to pay for my car, I got to pay for food, I need somewhat of a social life. You know what I mean? I need some clothes, I need this, I need that. Much less if she has a child. How is she going to survive? As a qualified engineer for over 10 years, working in the oil industry. Don't let's make excuses things that happen when they happen in. Because people can't starve now to eat later. And again, my always holy argument is, we're a village of 800,000 people. Don't tell me it takes more than 5 years to get this system right. I've watched countries and towns around this world with hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions of people change within weeks, within months. Why? Because the systems that they put in place. And I want to just use a little example of when I was away. I was in Japan. And it was so funny because I was, had a chance to, speak to a couple of people about the political situation and what's going on. It was one of the things they said. They said, you know why Japan works? Because at the end of the day, even if the government passes a law that we might not necessarily agree with, we are going to do what we have to. We're going to follow the rules. We are going to continue on the system, right? Even if it might not benefit us completely. But you know what's going to happen? Come next election, we are going to go to the polls and vote them out. Okay? Because we are going to follow the process. What we have here in Guyana is this an oppressed and abused situation that people just don't see past anything that happened last week because they can't afford to. And unless, guys, and I hope we can be one, this show and these types of programs, people like, Mr. Jonas here, that people can understand that there are people out there that are trying. And it only takes a minority government. It only takes one stadium full of people, 20,000 people to vote for any one single third party. And we can have a balance in this country, and we can really force these governments to be accountable and make changes and straight up just stop stealing money and give it back to the people. That's all. So that's my rant. It's been I'm back. We're going to be doing this every week. I was also told that that I've been acting very angry lately, and I've been so frustrated. I came back after such a good trip, and I've just been very disappointed. And I hope that, especially ANUG is in Parliament, heading into Parliament now, that, that there's going to be some proposals on the table. And I know you have been working very diligently behind the scenes. ANUG might not be as versed in the publicity as the PPP and the PNC are in posting every single move they make. But nonetheless, I know you have been working diligently in the backgrounds as far as laws and changes go. And I hope the people have a lot to look forward to and are going to be paying attention soon.
I think we're good at complaining, but we're not so good at solutions. And I hope that as people listen and think about solutions and discuss solutions that ANUG will be presenting and will be offering, I hope it can be done in a collegiate environment, because at the end of the day, both sides want Guyana to do well. But I believe that the hatred that each side has for the other overwhelms that. And as you say, the loyalists on both sides don't care as long as their side has power. And we need to change the conversation to solutions so that people can start thinking about how they want Guyana to look and how they want our society to function, rather than who's in the seat of power and whether it's a green shirt or a red shirt. We need to direct our conversation to solutions.
But I even think we're one step behind that. I think we have to acknowledge that there's a problem. And I think that's what is probably missing the most. People sitting down there and saying, well,
it's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I can't let my child go and walk down the road. I can't left my gate unlocked for 2 minutes or else somebody gonna run in and rob me. I can't take my eyes off the road because of the completely illegalities that are going on. I can't turn to the police if somebody come and rob me. I can't go to the hospital and get help. I can't send my child to school to get educated. But don't worry, there's no problems.
Lesser of two evils.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I think that is our mark, folks. Guys, please, solution-based. We're trying here to open a conversation to show, I know the publicity is a lot with all the positive, and then on the opposite side with all the negative. And at least on the basic areas, organizations like ANUG can try to present ideas that people can listen to and get on board and get behind and create something for 2025 moving forward. With that being said, I'm super happy to be back in Guyana.
I'm sure your audience is happy to have you back here.
I appreciate it. And we're going to be back here next week, Friday, same time, 6:30, talking about all that's happening in and around Guyana. So I hope you guys can join us then. I am KIAN JABOUR, and as usual, this is Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. Thank you for joining us.